Nā mihi o te wā koutou hara mai ki te whakarongo ki tēnei o tātou. Nā oku te honore ki te kōrero tātou nei. I tēnei ata a tāpua I roti I te rohe o Waikato Tairi, ko tēnei kahu e mihi atu mai Te Rau Matatini. I have the privilege this morning on our first webinar about the Hua Oranga to present to you what we know, and hopefully we can work together to make this really available to our kaimahi and to our whānau particularly. So the framework, the Hua Oranga framework, is a outcome measurement for Indigenous people. I say Indigenous people because Māori are the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, but it's also the first Indigenous outcome measurement. So Aotearoa has led the way in that respect. The outcome framework was compiled and developed by Sir Professor Mason Jury and Kanikini way back in 1999. And so that's nearly 2 decades. The framework consists of incorporating the thoughts of 3, that is the tangata whaiora, the person who comes in for help from our services, the clinician, and the whānau member. I'm just going to do some clarifications here in terms of the clinician. The word clinician was originally used as part of the Hua Oranga. We came to understand it was more than just the Western understanding of clinician. It was in fact anyone who worked with the whānau. And that could be the whānau order worker, the kaimahi, the kaimātua, anyone who came in contact with the tangata whaiora. And it was really important too to get the views of the whānau, which is an unusual concept because in most Western organised therapies or health services, there's just usually the 2, which is the dominant clinician and the tangata whaiora, who not all the time contributes, has the opportunity to contribute to their well-being. So this development in the contribution of 3 was unusual for services. It ensures that every perspective of the tangata whaiora and his life is incorporated in a well-being model and going forward. As you saw, the dimensions that were also put forward were new in terms of the taha wairua, the taha whānau, and the taha hinengaro and tēnā. So those are 4 dimensions that are important to have some discussion when the 3 meet. I'm going to talk about the taha wairua because it's so important in terms of Māori. Which isn't so important in the Western paradigm of working. So I'll give an example of the taha wairua. So my mother at 85 had a stroke and she had an assessment at home, which is on returning to home, which is great to know that you can actually work in homes. And for Māori, that is a acceptable way of engaging. So she had a nurse visit with a very broad Scottish accent that actually didn't help because every time the nurse spoke, my mother would turn to me and say, what is she saying? And so the nurse interpreted that as my mother having a hearing loss. In fact, she didn't because of the broad accent of the Scottish nurse. So you have to keep that in mind in terms of not only age but in terms of engagement with anyone, not only Māori. She did start off by saying, can we do a karakia, which my mother looked at her and said, Yes, you could do that. She did a Christian karakia, and of which my mother said, "Thank you for doing that." And she said, "Yes, yes, that's what I believe in," which was not a very good thing to say to my mother, because she said, "Well, I've had that belief long before." And the kind of discussion about who knew karakia and why it was said and things like that. So I would withhold, if I was the clinician, and saying that you had an in-depth, or you had any understanding about that, because my mother wasn't a good example to talk about that, because they spent the next half an hour discussing who had more knowledge around that. So resist from where you learnt your karakia or your blessings, and just carry on with what you're there for. And then it has always been one of our concerns that Mum lived alone. Well, she lived in her own whare, so she wasn't alone. Whare that she had lived in for 60 years and raised 8 of us. So, and we did try and get her to move from our little town of Piupiu and the Maniapoto to our homes in Kirikirino. Now, the nurse said to her, we're really concerned about you living here by yourself. She said, "I'm not by myself." And she said, "You're not?" She said, "No. My husband and everyone else is here." So the nurse said to me, "Is your father still alive?" Because the note said he wasn't. I said, "No, he's not." So then she immediately thought, "Oh, this lady is, there's problems here that she actually thinks her husband's still here." I said, "Kindly don't go that way." Because as far as Mum was concerned, and the discussions we had and understanding of her was that Dad was very much part of the whare, part of the home. And that he was regularly around. And particularly at night, she said he would come and sit at the end of her bed and just smile at her. And I said, and so does he say anything else? She says, "No, he just makes sure I'm in bed." And I said, "Well, you tell him you're not ready to go yet, all right? So he can come and see you every night, but you're not ready to go." She said, "I know that." So for a clinician, a nurse, to come and say, this lady is not well, because she thinks her husband's still there, and that's the Tawada. So, and we understood that with Mum too, that we would not take her away from an environment that meant so much to her in terms of her life and her continuation in terms of connection to our father and everything that she'd ever known. And to the point of, she says, I see you sometimes. Clearly not there. I see you sometimes. You're sitting over there, and I feel sorry for you because you haven't got any shoes on. And that was our life, that was our life growing up. And she said, and I go to the laundry and get some shoes out, but when I come back, you're gone. So that is the Tawadu, and that's what actually makes them very well. That they can still articulate and connect to people who have died. So clinicians, when they do assessments or they work with families, have to understand that is probably the paramount thoughts in our whānau when we talk that the past actually plays a huge part of their wellness in the present. And thankfully the nurse had also included the whānau, and she made sure, she rang and said, what is a convenient time, and made sure that we were there. So we're starting to work, we have started to work in terms of the inclusion of the whānau and inclusion of the tahawadu. Still got to look at who we send and how they present to our family and how they interpret asking the whānau questions that they haven't understood or what they're saying, because the accents are so good, and more, as more and more nurses or clinicians come from overseas. The other thing that's really important in the taha wairua is the connection with land and our rivers and our mountains. And we know that, Māori know that, because that's what we do when we meet each other. We reconnect with those significant landmarks. I was asked once, do Māori do that because they're territorial? Well, that could be perceived as, and probably perceived by non-Māori as being territorial, but in actual fact, it is making a connection. Because sometimes you don't know everyone who's in the whare with you in the room when you're talking, and people immediately say, when you say, ko taupiri te manga, ko wakata te awa, ko wakata maniaputu, nā iwi, and people immediately say, oh, she's one of mine, I'm going to catch up with you after this. So that's the linkage, and that's the use of taha wairua. And I'll probably tell you a lot of you who are listening what you already know. And there was a depth of knowledge out there. Yes, written. Google it, and you'll probably see lots of names come up. But there's also a depth of knowledge out there in terms of who actually works in our services. And we're talking about kaumata, we're talking about our kaimahi that have lived it all their lives. And I know there are those of you who are listening to that have lived it all your lives. And you're a real treasure for our services, our ability to be servants to our people because of your depth of knowledge. So, you know, I particularly don't believe when people say, I don't know where to find them. I don't know where to find them because they are there and they're at their doorsteps. And they have to make a commitment. The services have to make a commitment, absolutely, to employ them, because they bring in a wealth of knowledge around well-being and connection and identity. I'm going to talk about the taha wairua now. The taha wairua, the taha whānau. So that wasn't anywhere near what we should know about the taha wairua. As I said, Google, talk to your kaumata, talk to people who are working in our services, because there's a depth of knowledge, and make a commitment to that if you do want to work appropriately with Māori and this model. The taha whānau, oh gosh, there's been lots of debate. What is the whānau? What is the whānau? And I heard two diverse definitions at a current hui that I went to less than a month ago, actually, by two very well-known people in this area. One said there were diverse definitions, diverse realities, and that whānau can be people you work with, people who you might belong to as a club, your church, so they're your neighbour, so they are considered whānau. Then I heard the one that probably I operate on mostly, and that's one of whakapapa, one of bloodlines and connection. I say that because for me that is a huge sense of identity. I know not only from a few generations back, but back to the time of the arrival of my waka of Tainui. Now people say that iwi was a definition that made government feel good in terms of they didn't want to liaise with whānau, and then the larger group organisation called the hapu, so they put everyone together as the iwi. But they did not at all influence the waka. the waka arrived and were always known as waka. So, I descended Tainui. And the other waka I descend off, actually they say it was always here, which still remains on Hukuragi Maunga, that's my mother's side, as part of Maui's kōrero. Yeah, she was born and raised in a little town called Tikitiki. But if you want another full name, it's Maui Tikitiki Ataranga. So their kōrero goes way back to the beginning of time, at the beginning of lifting our Te Ika Maui, the North Island, out of the Moana. So it's really important to know that. And the other kōrero that I often give is when our ancestors travelled as the greatest navigators, the Wananuiākua, the Pacific Ocean, and left their homelands. Some say from Tahiti, that's nice. Some say from Hawaii, oh, that's even better to me, to here to Aotearoa. That when they came, that the ancestors, the tupuna on board Tainui, came for a better life. They left their homelands and came to Aotearoa for a better life for themselves and their descendants. So that's the kōrero. Like anyone else who travelled, who left their homelands and travelled in their big sailing ships or flew Air New Zealand or any other airline, they came to Aotearoa for a better life. So when we talk to our whānau, when our kids, our descendants, we say our tupuna travelled as the greatest navigators across the Wananuiākua to these lands of Aotearoa for a better life. Nothing more than that. And in actual fact, there's some proverbs that relate to them. One of the most prominent ones for me is He kākano koe I ruia mai I rangi ate. You are born from great seeds. So that's the kōrero we need to give to anyone who comes into our services. Okay, you're a descendant from these great navigators, and you descend from greatness. Because that's the kōrero, that is what they left us. As whānau, as their descendants, that is what they left us. The other kōrero around this is, as iwi go to do their final settlements, and my waikato iwi was the first, laid the foundation for other iwi to follow behind. And one of the ones that haven't settled, one of the last ones is my another one, my Niapoto. So knowing your connection, knowing your whānau, your whakapapa, gives you a sense that you are entitled to what was left behind. You need to follow that. And ensure that our services, and they might say, I don't know where to start. Well, I've just told you, in terms of the tahawaira, it's the same thing. You go to those same people. Actually, if you go ask people to say, go to the New Zealand land called on Rhine, and you just have to enter a name, and it'll come off to all lands that you connect to. And if you don't do that, we deny a rich whakapapa, a rich history, a richness from the Waitangi Tribunal settlements. And I'm really pleased, Waikato, one of my iwi went first, and one of my iwi's going last, because they will have the benefits of all those who travelled before them. And access to our significant places as part of that discussion for Maniapoto in terms of, hey, where are your significant places? And we're not talking about the ones now, but those that came before with our traditional whare wānanga, our places where we've healed, and where they're located. So that's why the whakapapa kōrero is so important. And yes, there is a level in terms of here's your neighbour, here's the people you work with, but the richness of the whakapapa kōrero in terms of identity, in terms of being Māori, in terms of access to resources that our tūpuna left for us when they travel across for a better life. We're going to talk about the tahahine ngaro, but you're probably far more knowledgeable than I am in terms of the tahahine ngaro and the tahatinana. So we'll leave those two domains for the moment, because this is only our first webinar on it. We are going to take note of what you've said in your feedback in the group chats. I see these heaps on there that we can certainly learn from. The next slide talks about the actual Hua Oranga. The Hua Oranga is dependent on a whole lot of things. So we have this order database, which is the online ability to enter in the Hua Oranga data. So as you're sitting with your tangata whai ora whānau, there's a schedule, and you'll see it there, fifth down, the Hua Oranga schedule, and you fill those out as a group. And then you load those into this order database. Don't feel fearful about it. I know some of us are not technically literate, but we will go through it on another webinar. And there are guidelines to help you with that. There's the order database manual as well. And the line will always be open for you to communicate with us about how well you're going with it. So have a read of all the downloads. You'll see that in the toolbar. There's lots of things there. The downloads are important because they do give you a background. They give you a background to Mason's article, and also a report that was written. An article that I was part of with Takani and Professor Malsop from Auckland University, which is why we have their logos down below on the PowerPoint. So read that, and the utility article, and I acknowledge Waitemata, particularly Moko Services, who contributed to that, and how they found using the Hua Oranga, and they're still very much the service in terms of experience with it. Nokua no tēnei a mihi atu ki tēnā a te kāpā, I reira I te wā I kai atu kia Waitemata, nāna no te whakaaro ka ui tēnei o te Hua Oranga. Matua George, he was the service leader there, and for his commitment and his contribution to Māori mental health, and upskilling his staff in terms of the Hua Oranga and encouraging to use it. So the utility one is basically what they said worked well for them, what they said didn't work well for them, and on those recommendations we made the adaptations to the Hua Oranga guide and to the outcomes. The outcomes recording analysis database, which is the order database, so happens to align with the word wellness order. So for our next webinar, I'm encouraging for you to read those articles that are in the downloads. Some people have already sent through and want to log in directly into the order database to see what's in there, and I'll do that. I'll do that this morning. I'll send you out a login so you can have a look. Our next webinar series will be talking about how to use the Hua Oranga and the order database in partnership with us. So I do thank you for your time this morning, and I know there are many who are listening who can contribute far more than I've given, and I welcome that too. Please be on the chat with us, and please, when this webinar does get loaded to the website, please put your whakaaro there, your thoughts. I do thank you for being part of this first one, Te Rau Matatini Hua Oranga Webinar. If you have a look in the description box below the video, there is a link that asks about a post-webinar evaluation service. We can only improve, so this is our first one. We can only improve, and with your recommendations, that's going to be really helpful. The next webinar is the registration is going out for July the 12th. So hopefully we've given you time to have a look through all the downloads. They're free to you. They're free to you, all right? We're free to you, so if you want to give us an email, you can email communityfund@teraumatatini.com and we will respond. We have received a request from one of the services to come up with actually a framework in terms of the assessments, so you can easily write under the taha wairua, taha whānau, taha hinengaro, and taha te rana. For those, just to clarify, we haven't left out the other two taha because we have thought them to be of less importance, because they are absolutely important, particularly how we want to improve wellness, and housing is a big one at the moment. I know, we know that, but we didn't want to spend a lot of time, we didn't want to spend most of this webinar talking about the taha wairua, because it is so important to our Māori. It's also our way of engaging with each other as Māori, and that, okay, we've got a question here. Yes, they used, one of our whānau have used the wharetapa whā in the suicide prevention resource called Growing Up Takatapu. We'll look forward to seeing that, and please send us through anything around that you've written with that, because we are looking at increasing our suicide prevention resources. Has Te Rau Matatini had a part in making or Māori focus to align to how our Indigenous feelings are? I believe we have representation on the advisory that is currently who wrote the current document that's out for consultation. The consultations have been in the north, in Te Taitokero here last week in Waikato, also in Tāmaki with Hua Oranga Webinar, and I think the next one's in Whakatane. But I tell you what, you can request directly to the ministry if you would like to hold a consultation. So if you don't believe you were included in that, you need to make a request directly to the ministry and say, we want you to come and hold a consultation meeting and make sure that our voices, our our Māori voices are heard within their documents. So that would be my recommendation to you. And yes, thank you very much. Loko anō tēnei e mihi atu ana ki a koe. Anei ka mutu a hau I tēnei ina kōrero o tōku nei tūpuna atu puia, mahia ngā mahi hei pai o te iwi. Clearly saying in the role of leadership as a servant, and it's me kahu for the day until we meet again. Kei te mihi, kia koutou.